Hello and welcome to another morning bulletin from the Blood Red team. We are your Liverpool.com writers, James, Martin and Ben Bocsak. And today the topic on the agenda is Liverpool's next 6 fixtures. Potentially a curious set to focus on, but if you look at them in detail, you'll notice something a little bit curious, and that is that aside from a trip to Wembley or Anfield South, as some people prefer to call it, all of the next 5 games are at actual Anfield, i.e. at home. So not much travelling at all for the squad, Ben. How much of an advantage do you see that as being?
I think it's a huge advantage, like heading into such a period where I think the biggest rest they'll get in the next month is 4 days off. Obviously, there's a cup final in between that as well. So to be able to not travel as much throughout this month, it's going to be a huge advantage. And just it might allow the team to potentially do some actual training and tactical stuff before games rather than wasting a day on travel, because normally for away trips you would have them go up the day before and stuff, and when they're not, and then that makes them not be able to train in advance. So I think the fact that we have these home games coming up is could be a major advantage for Klopp and the rest of the team.
And do you see it as being purely a kind of logistics thing, like you're saying there, training time, travel time, or do you think that the kind of fabled home advantage from Anfield is still a factor?
Of course, I mean that plays a part as well. The home advantage, and I think especially when you have tie legs, when you have 60 odd thousand people roaring your name and getting behind you at Anfield, it's another advantage, and it can give you that extra spur, that extra bit of energy that you need in these games when you are running short. And yeah, I think that will play a huge part as well.
And hopefully a slightly expanded crowd before too long. The club released some pictures today of the continuing work on the Anfield Road end, so that'll be another boost. But it comes at an interesting time, this kind of run of home games, because like you say, Anfield at its best, definitely this huge kind of boosting factor to the players. But Klopp made some interesting remarks not too long ago about the atmosphere. Maybe just a subtle reminder that he does give on occasion that, the support is perhaps not quite what it could have been in the last few fixtures. Do you think the fans are going to respond to that?
I think so. I mean, he made that remark earlier on in the season, and then the next game after that, the atmosphere was like a lot better, for sure. And I think, it's always hard though to sort of motivate yourself for these kind of games that Liverpool have coming up against Norwich, against Leeds. It's not necessarily a big tie, so sometimes I think the atmosphere is understandable, because you can't have a Barcelona atmosphere every single Anfield game, because that's a special one-off leg, and you want to keep those moments special and that atmosphere special. I think the crowd will respond.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point actually, because like you say, there is this whole kind of mythos around Anfield nights in Europe, and you do wonder whether that would have the same impact if there was that kind of just crazy levels of support week in, week out. You see it more in Germany with that kind of fan culture Klopp might be a bit more used to, in terms of the sort of constant 90 minutes of singing, flag waving, no matter what. And then that's great. It's a spectacle, but then maybe it does lose something when the players kind of need the fans the most. It's an interesting point to raise, but yeah, certainly, I think we'll see some kind of response in terms of Klopp clearly wanting that little bit more from the crowd. One thing to note with these games is how it affects the title race. It's it's almost a taboo phrase at the moment, because of course City do have that lead, and everyone's like, "Come on, let's calm down. Let's not get carried away just yet." But I mean, City do play twice away in the same period, so it's not as big an advantage as it might have been, but it's still an advantage. As you pointed out in your piece on it, it's double the amount of games away at the end of the day, double the travel. Do you think maybe that's something which Klopp and his team are looking at and thinking, okay, we're not quite out of this one just yet?
Well, in that period as well, Liverpool had one extra game in the Premier League, so that will give them an opportunity to catch up with City in terms of the game behind that they had, and even close the gap further, potentially to 6 points. And but yeah, I think the fact that City do have to travel a bit more could play in Liverpool's advantage. I think the level of opposition that Liverpool are coming up against, the only one you really worry about in the next few weeks is West Ham. But then again, that is also at home, and Liverpool should have enough to get the job done, get it over the line against West Ham at home with the Anfield crowd. But the rest, you see, they play Norwich twice, one in the FA Cup, one in the Premier League, Leeds United as well. It's all opponents who Liverpool should be beating, and they should be getting points against. Well, 3 points against. And if you don't get 3 points, then obviously you'll be disappointed. And then lastly, it's Inter Milan, where you already have a 2-goal advantage. So you just need we might even see some rotation in that game.
Yeah, like you say, that looked on paper like it would be one of the more testing games in the run, but that 2-0 win away from home has not quite sewn up the tie, but it certainly made things a lot more comfortable. I don't know whether we'll necessarily see Klopp go quite as far as rotating the team, but there's options there, even if it's just the kind of light touch rotation, where there's two players who are sort of much of a muchness, in the sense like we saw Canate come in for the first leg instead of Matip. Is it rotation, or is it picking the right player for the right fixture? But either way, it means that some established starters can get a little bit of a break. So yeah, definitely a bonus in there. Just on that, I saw some people talking about it's a shame how away goals aren't a factor anymore. I mean, that doesn't make sense with the scoreline. There's no situation where a 2-0 away win would then see Liverpool get through on the away goals rule. So I don't think there's too much to worry about on that front. But yeah, what is definitely the real boost, like you say, is the run of home games. And as you pointed out, we do have that Chelsea final in the middle. So maybe there's a marginal game for that as well, in the sense that they'll be going to Wembley relatively fresh, all things considered, given the fixture congestion.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the opposition as well. Norwich and Leeds beforehand. It's opponents who Liverpool should be able to rotate against at home with the Anfield crowd and everything else. So it might be the case that some of the Liverpool players get a bit of rest heading into that crucial game, which might not be the same situation at Chelsea, considering they have to play an important Champions League first leg before that. They've just went to the Club World Cup as well. So they've had to do a lot of travel in between that time. Obviously, they don't have to travel as far to Wembley, considering they're in London. But yeah, you'd say the fact that Liverpool are playing against Norwich at the weekend, it does allow Liverpool to sort of rotate some players. Klopp might bring in potentially Minamino, or Minamino get rotated a bit after Shota's injury. And it's the same scenario with Leeds. Like, you'd like to think, even with a little bit of a rotated squad, so maybe Chamberlain coming in for Salah or something like that, although Salah might not be too pleased about that. But you'd think Liverpool on paper should get the job over the line, like they have done in Mane's and Salah's absence during AFCON.
Yeah, Chelsea are a little bit lucky with their away fixture, in the sense that before they come to Wembley, it's Crystal Palace, so another one which is technically away, but still not the longest of journeys. But yeah, as you say, on the back of the Club World Cup, that is the main factor in terms of potential fatigue going into the final. It's a tricky one to call, but do you think that'll be the crucial edge? I'm going to get you to go out on a limb, give me a prediction for the final.
I mean, you'd like to think so. Chelsea have played a lot of games, and we saw a bit of fatigue when Liverpool came back from their own Club World Cup campaign. I think not too long after that, there was the Atletico Madrid game, and then obviously with the Watford defeat, which we don't really like to talk about in that season. So you'd like to think there is that could play a part, and it could be in Liverpool's favour.
Okay, I say I'm not going to get much more from you than that, so fair enough. But yeah, every little helps in the title race, in the race for other silverware, Carabao Cup included. So yeah, Liverpool will be very pleased, even if it's just a small gain. Whether it's enough to beat Chelsea, catch Man City, only time will tell, but we certainly hope it will be here at Blood Red. We'll be back keeping you updated on that every weekday morning as the season unfolds. So catch us again on Monday. In the meantime, make sure to check out all of our written content over on liverpool.com. There's a link in the description, I believe, for Ben's longer piece on this whole issue of the upcoming games and the home advantage. So be sure to give that a read. But for now, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you soon.